Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George Affleck.
And it's time for
the final countdown. Unspun.
That was really good.
You like that?
I like the musical interlude that you included there. Shout out to McLean K. He always loved it when you sang.
Yes, those are my little gifts for McLean every week, so I'm sure he listens or watches. Right, McLean?
Oh, of course he does. He'll retweet this right now because he's going to prove it. Civic election, George.
We're down.
Countdown.
8 days.
It is.
8 days until you can watch me live on CTV with Diane Watts and the rest of the team at CTV News. It's going to be a crazy night.
We're going to talk about Surrey as well. So for those of you who are like, why do you guys always focus on British Columbia's largest city, Vancouver? We will get to Surrey as well here. But let's begin. First, actually, let's start with provincial meets municipal with the endorsement of David Eby. Look at you. You're just like,
I don't know what it's. These endorsements are always strange to me. Like firefighters, for example, always coveted. But generally, when I look at the people who've been endorsed, they never win. It's almost like I don't want your endorsement. I'm not going to win if you endorse me. And I kind of feel that way about David Eby. I'm not sure. I know he's coveted as the next premier, but I'm not sure how much love there is for him right now across the city. He's getting a lot of heat for being blamed for the policing issues, housing issues. Those are his files. But, it's a high level. It's not only Eby that this is the mayor that we're talking about, Kennedy Stewart, that got these endorsements. He got Eby, he got Harcourt. I think Bill Tillman got Clark. They got a cavalcade.
Ken Sim got the police board.
Ken Sim got that was the first time they've ever endorsed anybody. Strange situation.
People really upset about that one though, George. Let's talk about that. Let's take the spin out of that one a little bit. Because there are people that are really, really upset that, and on the Steele and Vance show that we did on Thursday night, depending on when you're watching this, of course, speaking on the subject of law enforcement, it was always fascinating with Linda because her husband is Norm Lipinski, who is the new Surrey police chief. So she brings a really knowledgeable perspective to this.
Without telling you too much.
Right. Well, she's very good at that, right? She doesn't lean into to that hard, but she actually suggested that we have SFU lecturer, political scientist Stuart Preston with us, and he was very fascinating to watch. I'm not sure if you saw the segment. I'm sure you watched the show. You're very.
I did.
But Stuart really came at this one like was super like checks and balances and poli-sci, and he's like, I'm so glad you asked me that question. And he was, very poignant and pointed, I might say, about how an endorsement from law enforcement it's different. It's different than a health authority or a firefighter or a politician. And I found myself, taking that in, and he used Ottawa and the convoy there, and how while most of the Ottawa police were looking to fix the situation, there was some discussion and certainly some stories told that were fact checked that some of the officers attending were, for lack of a better way of putting it, on the side of the protesters, picking sides. Does an endorsement, this is my unspun question for you, George, does an endorsement, when the police union polls their people and asks what everybody is feeling and brings that polling back and then announces it, how does that land with you?
If you believe that's the process, here's what the process in my mind for the police specifically in that endorsement. This has been a 2-year campaign to try and destroy Kennedy Stewart. They have been very, very strategic in being vocal about the challenges that they have. Kennedy Stewart decided he wanted to take on the police and want to push back on their funding. If you recall, he's kind of
I do.
pulled back
Yeah.
away from that now. He became, the anti-police mayor. He kind of sided with the community, saying that we have too many police and we need to defund the police. That he was part of that movement, and so the chief and the mayor, if you remember, got into a very, very hot exchanges through media, very unusual situation. So I can say without a doubt, the Vancouver Police Department do not want Kennedy Stewart as the mayor, and have made a conscious decision to make sure that doesn't happen. This endorsement is not only endorsement, I believe, and this is just conjecture. I have no, I'm just basing this on when we talk about spin. When I look at the volume
Right.
of content they've
That's
been
why I
pushing
asked
out
you
there. They've been
your
pushing that
opinion.
content out. They've been putting
Yeah.
all the data out. This is not stuff that I've ever seen before from the Vancouver Police. They were not that kind of vocal police force and talking
No.
about data. They used to keep that stuff quite hidden because, as we have been reporters and journalists, you got to be careful sometimes about how, there's things like you don't report suicides, because it makes people more suicides happen. It's the sort of things that in journalism you learn about. And that's the same goes with police forces and fire departments. And, when there's bomb threats, all these kinds of things. But the police made a conscious decision in Vancouver to really push this message out that they were in trouble and that the city was, in trouble, that there was lots of crime happening. And of course, I agree there is. I mean, I would never have supported what Kennedy Stewart was, to defund the police. I think we need more police. We need a different way to police our city. Police being, small p, as far as how do we keep a civil society. This is our duty. This is the government's job to ensure a civil society, and the police department and the legal department, the courts are a crucial part of that. We've given up on that. Our passive nature as a society has let the civil society fall to the wayside, and so they've made a conscious decision. So they probably waited until the 11th hour, which it is. They've done the polling. They clearly, Colleen Hardwick probably would have supported them as well, as would have, the NPA's candidate. I'm sure if it had been John Cooper and he was in the position of being, in a battle for the mayor's job right now, he would have probably got the endorsement before Ken Sim. But,
Right.
The polling is there. They've got this is a battle between two people now. And they're certainly not going to endorse Kennedy Stewart. So they endorsed Ken Sim and the whole team there. And so there's that issue going on. But then the endorsement side, I don't know how much it actually helps you, because as you said, you get a lot of baggage that comes with this. Now you have that mushy middle that we talk about, which is Ken Sim's been courting quite successfully, I think, in that if you ask a lot of people who would never have voted for John Cooper or have voted for Ken Sim as MPA, are now going, well, I don't really like Kennedy Stewart. I got nowhere else to go. Maybe Ken Sim's not so bad. But now they see this endorsement and they're going, oh, so he's like super pro police then? Is that what this is? It can actually push him to the right, which is not where he wants to go.
Right. But unless that mushy middle has noticed the escalating in crime and the feeling of being insecure in this city, where that narrative, and this is me again, just giving you my perspective and opinion on I don't know the answer. I wish I knew the answer. And no, I don't think we need to lean in on marginalized communities and people that are suffering
No, that's not
addiction
what this is
and
about.
mental
No.
health issues.
Yeah.
This is about a bigger picture that has a very frustrated electorate that are living in this incredibly unaffordable city, being told that we don't have enough money by the current mayor to have the police force that is necessary to create an environment on our city streets whereby people feel confident in, I don't know, walking into your lobby of your apartment building at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday, like this woman getting attacked in her lobby of her apartment and then getting away from this guy and him chasing her outside, and then 6 people pull this guy off and hold him down until the police come and take him in. And then he's released. It's like there's a bigger problem than it's just a municipal
100%.
problem. So I'm before somebody screams at their radio or at their screen, if you're
But
watching UnSpun Podcast, at some point the mushy middle has flipped into, a wedge issue. You taught me this.
Maybe.
This is
they're mushy. They're mushy still, though. You never know.
Yeah. Oh, people don't know where to go, George. I'm getting that. I think that's my most
Oh my God,
asked
so much.
question right now.
I
How
get it
often?
I get all my left-leaning friends calling me, emailing me, asking me who they should vote for. I'm like, what do you mean? Aren't you going to vote for Kennedy Stewart? Like, you're asking me And then they tell me that I should have run. I'm like, you would never have voted for me. Come on, like, give me a break. But they're
I would
so
have.
disappointed in Kennedy Stewart, and they
I would
really
have
are
voted for you.
thrilled.
I've told you that because I'm not right or left or this party or that party. I
Mhm.
want common sense. I want to believe in the person that is, and I find that in this particular election, and this is the undecided voter, in my opinion, because the people that are coming at me are very similar, and but they're all over the. I don't know that I could peg them as a lefty or a center righty or whatever. Most of my friends are not far right.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that. But I don't
you'd
tell
know.
them who to vote
You'd know.
for. I would. I don't tell them who to vote for. I tell them who I'm not voting for. And then I leave it open, right? Because
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
definitely
That's kind of
not
what I'm
made it
doing
a
too.
secret
Yeah,
that I'm not pleased with the current mayor.
yeah.
Uh, it has
And
been
you've been saying as well, like I have, that we've talked about a lot. You don't have to pick every single person or 10 people or this and that. Choose one person,
super
whatever
important.
you think. But you still have to choose a mayor or not, I guess. I mean, not voting is you could say that's a protest. You could put it on the rest of the ballot, so you're still voting. But if you don't vote for mayor because you just can't decide, that's saying something, I suppose. But you're
But
handing, that vote
that's
to
a vote
somebody
for
that you don't
Kennedy
want.
Stewart, isn't it? Isn't that
Uh,
a
it
non-vote?
depends on who the person is, I guess. I mean, if they're a super right wing person, I would say that everybody on the right has lots of places to go. The left is really challenged, and so I think it's interesting because I've been waiting for Kennedy Stewart's campaign to start. It's really not taken off, and I think I'm surprised, to be honest. Unless there's something we don't know that's happening behind the scenes, like busloads of people being picked up and taken to polling to vote. I don't
I
know.
did
I haven't
see.
seen.
Did you see the healthcare? I guess it was the healthcare union caregivers. A friend of mine who works in healthcare sent
Mhm.
me a screen cap of a flyer that they were given about who supports healthcare in Vancouver,
Mhm.
and actually in Metro Vancouver, it had North Van. It had around the city of Vancouver a little bit. It wasn't everywhere, but it
Yeah.
was here are the people to vote for, and it was all the current
Yes.
left
Forward
or
and progress, or forward and one
without
city
and
and cope and yeah.
yes, and then had a couple of people. I mean, they should really have checked their flyer before they sent it out because they had a couple of people that aren't running on the list.
Whoops. Good
Yeah,
research. Hey,
yeah.
have you seen the ballot?
I
Have you?
voted.
Did you notice something on that? But I haven't voted yet. But Rob McDowell is an old friend, ran for council a couple of times with me, and great guy. Really, knows his stuff. But I hadn't noticed this on the ballot, and he noticed it right away on the ballot. For those people who haven't
Yeah,
voted, or if you have voted, there's people, the name and the party name, but the party name for Kennedy Stewart, it's Forward Vancouver with Kennedy Stewart on every single candidate's name. So it's brilliant. I mean, I
it's
don't know how they got
branded.
away with that. Yeah, it's branding. It's 100% branding. It's then you as the ballot's got 100 people or whatever on it. You go in there,
137.
100, yeah, 137 people. You go in there, you're going, okay, well, whether it'll certainly identify it if you hate Kennedy Stewart. Okay, I don't have to vote for those people. But
Right,
if you're going,
right.
I want to vote for Kennedy Stewart and all those people, it's way easier to find him on the ballot because it's actually 2 lines. And so you can go, okay, there's my 6 council candidates. There's my mayor. Uh, Really smart branding strategic move. I can't believe they got away with it, but
Yeah.
their organization must be officially called that. That's how they probably pulled it off legally. The
But I mean,
NPA
can't
is,
you put whatever you want because it's
yeah,
got
you're
evil
kind
genius on there.
no,
Amy, what's her name?
well, the
Whatever.
party names though, you're supposed to go by. You have to kind of go usually by the name that is registered. In the case of nonpartisan association, the NPA, they've always gone by generally NPA, but I think it's changed in different ways over the years. I think I've seen it as NPA Vancouver, but it's this was just putting his name on it. It's a double-edged sword, but I think it actually
Right.
will certainly help his candidates, because if you're a progressive, quotes person, because I never understand that because I'm progressive and I'm conservative financially, but I'm still a progressive person.
Yeah.
Um, so anybody who's on that's why I always kind of refer to it as left leaning, heading towards socialism.
Let's be honest. You say lefty. You're just like, oh, lefties.
The mushy
Yeah,
middle, and the
you do.
lefties, and
Yeah,
the righties.
the lefty lefties
Um,
and the righty righties.
I think that they're going to go in there, and I talked about this as I think there's six. They're running six. Everybody's running six except for NPA or except for ABC. I always get those mixed up. Except for ABC, who's running seven. Now, if they get all seven and the mayor, they got a super majority, so that's what they're gambling for.
Yeah.
And that would be
I
huge.
didn't. I made sure on my ballot, and I will. I will say this, and I do want to pick your brain about because there are so many people running that when you say this is a 2 or 3 horse race, I want to get into that in a second. But just as a guidance piece of how many 200 episodes of Unspun Podcast that we've done, I've learned a
190.
lot from you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I've learned a lot from you, and the importance of not having that super majority because of what we learned in the vision era of how so many decisions were made prior to it even coming to council, before there was even an opportunity. I mean, you talk about public consultation. How about political consultation by our elected officials? Like, we got to be very careful. So when I voted, I did vote for the people. I didn't vote for the parties. I voted for the people I felt acted in the best interest of the people. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't a popularity contest. That wasn't a who I thought, talk to me the most or whatever. I thought these are the people who consistently step forward with some commonsensical choices. And that is not reflected in the bios that you see, by the way. People who are suddenly cramming for their test that is voting on October 15th, or by the way, advanced polling, which with your voter card takes no time at all. You literally don't even need identification. I took out my driver's license and she goes, no, I don't need that. Just the card. I'm like, oh, okay.
I've heard through a connection that the mail-in ballots is at record lows. They've never seen so few mail-in ballots coming in. And I wonder if that's related to what the distrust in America, on the mail-in stuff, or where that's.
Let's not get into the weeds. Let's talk about the front.
Or is it indicative of potential turnout being super low as well?
I hope you're wrong in that regard, because that again would be good for the incumbent, right?
No, I don't think so. I think it'll be bad for him. I think it'll be his vote that doesn't show up.
Oh, okay. So let's go through this. How's polling looking, George? Give me the George Affleck 411 on what we're seeing.
Well, I kind of touched on it that I'm waiting for Kennedy Stewart to start his campaign. The kinds of questions I'm getting from my friends. I think Ken Sims got the momentum for sure. I still think running 7 candidates was a big mistake. But if they're looking pretty cocky, which you got to be careful this close to an election, that you don't look to fully yourselves.
No peacocking.
Because then your vote doesn't show up. They're going to win anyway, so I'm not going to show up. That's what happens. You got to keep people scared up to election day. On election day, say, if you don't show up, the other people might win, and so you always want to keep that, the feeling that it's a horse race, and that, and according to the only polls that we've seen publicly from Mario Canseco, Research Co., it is a horse race for those 2 candidates, and I think it still is if they show up. If nobody shows up, and it's those Kennedy Stewart people that don't show up, or maybe it's Ken Sims people show up because they think he's a no-brainer, he's going to win. I think generally though, and because people on the right side of the spectrum generally show up, and older people show up, and they generally vote right. But Colleen is a linchpin here. She hasn't. But in
polling, exactly. So in polling. It's like Kennedy Stewart is what 36% of the vote, and
that's a dead heat.
And Ken Sim is 34.9%, whatever, or give or take. And then Colleen Hardwick is 13%, and Mark Marison's 8%, and everybody else.
We lost election. So Colleen being this, as far as percentages, as being Shauna, but different vote, different people. It's interesting because basically, Colleen's grabbed some of the super right-wing people and some of the angry left-wing people who are homeowners who don't want change. They want their little choo-choo train around the city. I'm beginning a battle on Twitter.
That train thing. Okay, can we just go there for 1 second?
Yes.
I mean, it really was something on social media. Following George on Twitter is a full sport. It's like you got to follow at George _ Affleck. Yeah. At George underscore Affleck. Follow along on Twitter. Because when you put that out about how, because of course, Kennedy Stewart put out his loop map of
Yeah.
where the SkyTrain's going to go, which was like, okay, um, fine. And then Colleen Hardwick came out with the idea of doing above ground light rapid transit, which you call the
Choo-choo train? Little choo-choo train
choo-choo
around the
train.
street. I
The
just,
choo-choo
it's
train.
just like, what are you doing? We have,
Well, she's talking about making it go to
I
more
know,
corners
I
of for
know.
the same amount of money.
So
But
you want
I
rail
want to
down your street? Like, give me a
no,
break.
I want to ask you that. The two things that I was when I saw this happen, and I'm coming from a position of like, I got to ask George, and this is unspun, right? So when she puts out the map showing of all the places that these trains are going to go, first thing I thought of was how she said towers, SkyTrain is a tower, whatever, and these trains are more for street level community, whatever. And I'm thinking, I don't understand that. Like, can you explain why one's towers and one's not? Like, isn't moving people in an
Yeah.
expedited fashion going to
Well, and you go to Nanaimo Station, by the way. How many towers do we see at Nanaimo Station? It doesn't guarantee tower developments happen at a train station. Here's a good example right there. Just go to Nanaimo Station.
or
20.
25th and Canby? 25th and
Yeah,
Canby is not a huge tower
exactly.
there at
No.
all. At all.
Yeah,
Like,
or
so that
16th,
makes me
or 16th in Canby, or
same.
it's ridiculous. It's yes, there may be more density, but we don't know what that density will look like. It could be higher, sure. I live in a 300 unit tower development. I
Right.
raised my 3 kids there. It's fine. I
But I'm
chose it.
telling you, like,
It
I'm
works.
not,
You
I'm
chose
not a big,
yours.
I'm not a
Yes,
big tower person, but I'm certainly not
choice is good.
anti-tower
No,
at Broadway and Granville if that's where the people who want to live at downtown
absolutely.
find the best option for while they work or attend at UBC, and then they hop on a train and they're at UBC in 7 minutes with no gas and no
Where there's lots of
obstruction on the
towers
street,
at
where there's
UBC,
lots of, right,
lots of towers,
lots of
and there'll be
towers.
lots of towers along 10th Avenue, probably down the way where the Safeway store is, and there will be towers at Jericho, and there's going to be, yes, there's going to be towers, but will there be
Yeah.
towers at Arbutus and Broadway? I doubt it. I know there'll be some bigger buildings. I know there's that one social development that they're all angry about that
Yeah.
they're fighting against, and it's not a tower. I think it's 12 stories.
It's 13, 14 stories,
Yeah,
whatever. But I
to
agree with
me,
you.
as a
And
Yale
my
Town resident, that's
question,
not a tower. That's a little, that's a
but my
waffle.
question wasn't so much about tower or not tower. Why does one form of transportation in this, you know,
I know.
pitch that has been put out, like why is one attached and the other is not? Like, are we moving people or are we not moving people? If the choo-choo train's not going to move enough people to
And why put
warrant
it?
having more density, why would we spend the money at all?
Yeah.
Like,
Why?
what
If you're going to
what
build
are we doing?
local communities where you live, work, and play, then you don't need a train. We've got buses.
Okay, so I'm not
You've got
crazy.
you
Okay,
can
good.
ride your bike. You can
Yeah.
take an Uber. You can
Cool.
take a car share. You eventually there'll be automated driving vehicles that follow anywhere that you want, and they'll be small or 12 passenger vans that will drive around automated. That's probably within 10 years that's going to happen. It's already happening with commercial vehicles in the States. It's already happening. It's coming, and within 10 years we're going to have automated vehicles driving around our city, probably owned by Elon Musk. Because his whole lease system for his Teslas is he takes them all back because he wants to turn them into a giant cab company in some
Right.
market somewhere that he's going to test it. You watch. So
I believe you.
he's probably Palm Springs or somewhere, or a Phoenix where you don't have to worry too much about running over people and things. So I just don't understand it either. It's nonsense. I think we have a trolley system. Well, that trolley system's antiquated, but it's electric, so it's good for the environment. You can be
It's
flexible
full.
where you go. It's the and I don't get the light rail. You put tracks down and a thing on the. I don't get it. Why would you put tracks down? You don't need them. Why?
No.
Why?
Why?
Why this
And
obsession with tracks?
and also, if I may, more and more discussion with the increase in the veracity of storms, we shouldn't be putting up more above ground wires. We just shouldn't. I mean, like, take a look
Yeah,
see at the
battery
level of
technology. Come on,
destruction, right? Come on.
it's
So
just like
the other thing that I wanted to ask you about, like, literally, I'm so glad that I'm not losing my mind that that didn't make any sense when that was dropped. But I could see why people would be like, "Oh, more for less, great, let's do that."
Mhm.
Just getting the non nerds. But the other piece of the to SkyTrain or not to SkyTrain, I don't understand the short-sightedness, I guess, of wanting to, again, when what she said, when the people at the team headquarters said
Mhm.
it'll run down this road and it will go out on that road and it'll connect to here and there, and showed all of the lines all over the city. And I'm like, all of those communities are going to be saying, not on my road. I,
I don't want rail. I don't want to
I
be
don't
on like
want
walking,
rail line
crossing the
on my
street with rail lines. It's
ding
like
ding
not fun.
ding
Senior
ding
citizens with their
ding.
aging population, with their pushers, getting caught in the tracks. I mean, it's dumb. It's so old fashioned. I mean, I don't know how
It
else to
feels
put
old
this. How many?
fashioned.
I get so much attack from them. Like but I've been saying this since the day I was elected. The only light rail I supported and I fought for it was the train that went from Granville Island to, at that point, the
It
Olympic
can be.
station, because it was
Yeah,
already there. Why? It was
it was
costing the
already
city
there.
$80,000 a year to run that thing. 80,000. It was done by volunteers. It was
It
nice. It
was
was scenic. It
great.
actually did a
It
job,
was
and it was
great.
a tourist attraction. And
Yeah,
Vision Vancouver said, "Oh, it's a choo-choo." They were saying choo-choo train to me. I'm like, no, but this is like a tourist attraction. It's like eighty
it was
thousand bucks a
perfect.
year for the city. Come on, it's
Yeah,
volunteers. It's for senior citizens that not only donate their time. Former
yeah,
city councilors on there helping out, actually, and this train, it was quaint. It was not an old train. It was actually a new train bought for during the Olympics. It
yeah.
could have gone all
It
the
was
way to
cool.
Science
I
World.
wrote
The
it.
track
Yeah,
system's there,
yeah,
and that was okay. That's the one I supported because it was already there. Had a job. It was cheap. It was outside the TransLink system, so it didn't have to follow all the same regulations. It cost us nothing. It was the only system that we had that we controlled, but we got rid of it because of Vision. So that was dumb. But
right.
beyond that, it makes no sense to start laying track on every single corner in every area of the city. It's just, I can't say how many more times. I don't understand. It makes no sense to me. I don't understand
Makes no sense.
how that is not a logical argument to these people that laying track is a terrible idea. What is wrong with you thinking that's a good idea? I don't get it.
Yeah, it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. I'm going to warn our listener, our viewer right now, we're going to go over time today because we promised to get to a number of things. We're running short on time because we're passionate about this stuff. And I think we definitely need to hit on three more things at the very least, because while we're talking about team,
Mhm.
that sort of anti-development, or, that the ABC and Forward are both developers in their pocket,
Mhm.
now going after, how does truth and reconciliation really come into play when, and it's not necessarily the party, but it definitely is the area that has a lot of that party in it, that is taking the Sanok development to the Supreme Court. I mean, to take the spin out of this, Kits Point residents
Yeah. Who
trying to
didn't
block that.
Yeah, they've taken the city to court over buses that go to the museum there, and they're an angry bunch down there for sure. Uh, fairly entitled. Sorry, Colleen Hardwick, who lives there, but it's like, come on. However, I would say that one of the challenges if I just to speak on a policy point of view for First Nations developments who are working with private partners, like in this case, I think it's Westbrook or West. Oh my God, Ian Gillespie's company. Anyways, you're the fear and the
Is it
problem is
West
that just
Bank? West
Yes,
Bank.
West Bank. Thank you.
West
The
Bank.
fear and the
Sorry.
problem is that people feel that they get to bypass the normal community planning process. I think
Right.
this lawsuit's related to services and
Yeah,
access to
sewage
water,
and,
sewer stuff,
yeah,
which we actually
water.
have
Yeah.
had a long time. We actually renegotiate that deal all the time. I was there as part of that the last negotiation on how much the rates are. They do get they get a flat rate structure. It's quite different. But anyways, so that's the argument they're saying, but it's really, I think, more of a discussion about, well, how come they get to bypass the process? And of course, the argument is reconciliation time, ladies and gentlemen. It's
Yeah.
time to give back what we took away, is the argument, of course, on their side. So, but you have these three First Nations groups in Vancouver who I think represent, I think there's 6,000 of them in total, I believe, of those three First Nations of that will all be probably multi-millionaires by the end of this process. You
Good.
know, it's yeah, no,
Good.
and that, are
So
we
are the people
reconciled
who
yet?
built Vancouver House on the other side of the bridge. Like,
Yes,
the fact that
that's right.
this
Yeah,
is a
good point.
thing is
Good
like,
point. Anybody
come
who bought real
on.
estate Yeah, you
Yeah,
bought real estate in 1975 in Vancouver. You're a multimillionaire now. Uh,
correct.
so
Anyways, I just
yeah,
wanted to put that on
it's
our
really, I
radar
think
because
it's
we're
a
going to
fair
keep up on
process.
that
There
one.
might be a bit of
Yeah,
racism in there too. I think maybe, but I think it's
that
mostly
bugs
they
me.
just worry about the fact that there is a process, and you can't really say anything without getting in trouble. So it's a really touchy area. Of course, you want to take on First Nations and something they're doing. Oh, that's not cool. So it's obviously a really, and while this argument might be not be valid, it might be valid, it might not be. I guess the courts will decide. What happens when there is a really good valid argument that comes along and you say, hey, you can't make that argument, this is First Nations, we can't, you can't have that. So it's definitely a challenging issue, and maybe that's why the courts is a good place to solve these problems. It shouldn't be solved in the court of public opinion, because you're probably going to lose if you're going up against First Nations these days.
I would hope, and I found it, I rolled when I heard that this was happening, that this case was being levied, because can we get this far down the planning process to where we're clearing the trees are being cleared in order to
Mm-hmm.
begin construction, and that's the moment where you're like, yeah, I don't know if I like the sewer rate or whatever. It's like, get into politics, like actually get in and be a part of the planning, or get out of the way, because
Well,
you've said this many times about the plans that are the grand plans that are built and cost a
mm-hmm.
fortune, and and then, like, I've learned a lot from you, George, and I think I keep coming back to it. You know what, we're never going to get to the end of this story in this episode, so let's leave it
Mm-hmm.
there, because I do want to get to Surrey, we promised, and with we're
Mm-hmm.
30 minutes into our podcast. So in Surrey,
Yes.
what we're seeing from current Mayor Doug McCallum, and the incredibly long ballot that exists in Surrey as well. Like,
Yeah,
we're not getting into the
it's like
weeds on that,
Vancouver.
but right. But Doug McCallum now has most recently said, what has he promised? He's like, I'm going to bring a
Stadium.
huge stadium.
Uh,
Um, he made immediate plans on the transit, his promises before, and bringing in a
Extended.
Surrey police,
Uh, yeah, and then
municipal
now the
police.
latest
Like, that's,
yeah, and the latest
yeah.
tax freeze.
And now, yeah, property tax freeze. It has others just like, what? How are you paying for stuff if you all of a sudden
Well, it's
freeze everybody's
possible.
property?
I would argue. I had this debate all the time at council with staff. When you're a growing city, population of Surrey grows by, say, about 12,000 residents on average per year. They don't. We build more units in Vancouver, I believe, because they build more houses, and so they have more people moving there. But we have
Right.
more units in Vancouver than they do, so it's a weird situation. We have less people but more units, because they have more families moving there. So one of the arguments I always had with staff was that, because I have a problem with property tax increases constantly going higher than the rate of inflation or whatever they might be. Because I'm going, well, wait a minute, we got in Vancouver 5,000 average moving here, or whatever, 1% per year.
Yeah.
These are ratepayers. These are people who will be living somewhere. They'll be paying taxes. Are you? And staff would always say yes, but every penny of that new tax is spent. I'm like, really? You're telling me that a building where I live, which is 300 units, which replaced a gas station that was there before, you're not making more money off the 300 units all paying tax?
Yeah.
I think that doesn't mathematically make sense. And I would get pushback and pushback, and I didn't get obviously support from Vision on this debate. And I think that's kind of where, in Doug McCallum's mind, which I don't want to go there too deep because that could be a scary place to go. I think he might have an argument that actually it could work if he can get staff to believe what I believe, and what he probably also kind of thinks. We got people moving here, we got new developments happening all the time. There's more money coming into our city. We must be able to do this properly. All of
To
that,
give
and
people a
Surrey's
break.
newer, so its infrastructure is much better. Vancouver has a lot of old infrastructure, so
Right.
it's much more expensive to replace that. That I get, but Surrey has pretty good new infrastructure, and so sewers and water mainly. That's what it costs when new people move in. It's water, sewer, electric. That's what kills you, and any gas if that's an issue. So that's what you talk about. But we have these development cost levies and all that stuff. So, anyways, it's election time, Jody. We've got another week of nutty announcements to unspin next week
We do.
before we
We do.
do our final episode before the election. So if you're waiting to figure out who to vote for, you're probably not going to get it from us next week, because we're not going to tell you. You got
Probably
to figure
not.
it out.
We'll tell you what's happening though. Just
Yeah.
before we leave, bungee jumping prime minister race.
Yes. bungee jumping prime minister. Good, bad. What do you think?
He was at his son's birthday party. His kids both did it, and then he decided to do it. My thing is,
Mm-hmm.
if a prime minister bungee jumps in the forest, does anybody hear if nobody records it? Like, let's just let it go. They're bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, yeah, I agree with you, but I also think a little bit that they're with, Pierre Poilievre, they're kind of trying to make, him, Trudeau, like, you don't want this
Every
nerd
man,
over here. I'm cool, man.
right?
I jump off the side of a cliff and off this guy, what's he do? Combs his hair with Grecian formula and wears nerdy glasses. Do you want that guy as your prime minister? You want this guy? That's when you talk about spin, that's what I think
You
puts
just
me
went
over the line.
nerdy glasses and Grecian formula, and I'm like, who are we
I
talking
know,
about
right?
here?
I know. I gotta get to work late this morning.
All right, see ya. Get out of here. Go away. Go away.
See you
I'm
next
done.
week. Bye.
Bye.